October 2025 is the last big transit of the year. We have Jupiter moving into Cancer this month, and it's a big transit that's going to impact over the next year. And it's one of the most auspicious, positive transits we can ever have. And it only happens once every 12 years. And it's starting this month in October. So it's a very exciting energy to work with. It's very positive for relationships and growth on a lot of levels. We'll talk about that today, as well as the 12 major notable things to talk about for October, including two free live workshops that I'm hosting this month that you can join right now. You can RSVP for free, and those are going to be super fun. And we also have the full moon and new moon are the other big events we'll talk about this month, as well as all of the major transits happening, including the sun becoming debilitated in Libra, how that can challenge us in relationships to some degree and help us find new elements of our sense of self and confidence. But we'll get into all of it today. I'm Jeremy Devins. This is the Quietmind Astrology podcast. And if you're new here, you can get your own free birth chart at quietmindastrology.com. Or you can also sign up for the free workshop Relationship Astrology coming up this October 20th, on Monday, October 20th, as well as the free workshop to deepen your yoga practice on October 6th. So if you have a yoga practice or want to start one, or you're a yoga teacher, this is the place to go deeper into your practice. Lots of cool stuff there. So the first thing is that on Thursday, October 2nd, Mercury is going into Libra. So Mercury, the planet of communication, is moving from Virgo, where it's been exalted in the end of September, which has been in a good place for learning and improving communication and resolving communication things. So back in September, there's probably some things that you needed to speak and resolve and get through in relationships and in any area of life. And you were able to communicate those things more clearly in September. And now in October, this is actually even better for relationships starting from October 2nd, and that will be until October 24th. So Mercury transits are usually around 3 weeks, and that is the case here as well. Retrogrades change that sometimes. We will have a Mercury retrograde coming up in November, so got that to look forward to. So while we're in October, it's a time to keep moving forward in communication and keep expressing things. And you may find you're more creative, more inspired. It's a good time for learning. And Mercury moving into Chitra here from Virgo to Libra, especially at the beginning of this, October 2nd. It's a good time for anything that you want to create and envision, like creative projects and ideas, start to put into action. It's joining up with Mars for a while here. And Mercury and Mars together helps you get into action and be direct in communication and say, this is what needs to happen. So it's a very good month in October for learning and applying that knowledge into integrating it into action, like starting a new exercise program, especially like a pranayama practice, or like I'll be sharing this workshop, deepening your yoga practice. Like if there's things you want to study, books you want to read, or there's free workshop you want to take, something like that. But it's very good for all these things, but especially in relationships because Mercury's in Libra, Mars in Libra. If there's some action to take in relationships, like a deeper level of commitment, going out on exciting adventures and dates, things like this, bringing more romance into relationships, deepening communication and intimacy, emotional intimacy is very good with this transit. So lots of cool stuff to work with there. And then again on Monday, October 6th, this is our second notable transit of the month. We have the full moon in Revati and Pisces, which is bringing closure to the eclipse window. So as always, the eclipse window happens twice a year, and it's 6 weeks whenever it happens. 6 months apart, and then it's 6 weeks while it's happening. And in that window, you're going through a portal, and I think of it like moving into a timeline that you're choosing. In quantum physics, we know that basically the understanding of it is that every possible choice you can make is now creating a new reality where you made this choice or that choice. That's the conservative quantum physics side of it. So in the understanding of astrology that I have is that we go through these eclipse portals, and it's like you're choosing now, are you going to continue this relationship? Are you going to continue this job? Are you going to start a new job? These kind of big life changes. Where are you going to live? What career path are you going to follow? What are you going to do in your personal life? They're not always massive, but if they're on your own signs, they tend to be much more significant. Like for everybody who has Pisces, ascendant, moon, sun, or three or more placements in Pisces, this full moon in Revity and this eclipse window, which has gone through Aquarius and Leo. So all of those signs are very strongly affected. Those are the people who are probably most affected. Leo, Aquarius, Pisces, rising, moon, sun, or three or more placements there. And for everybody, this full moon in Revity and Pisces is a sense of closure and completion of a cycle that started 6 months prior in March in the previous eclipse window. So think back to March, what was going on in your life, what changes were happening, what decisions have you had to make in this eclipse window of September, and you can connect the dots here. And the Revity energy brings a lot of wisdom. So people who have Revity in their chart tend to be very wise, very spiritual, naturally connected to mystical energies and intuition and insights, visionary kind of energy. So for all of us, when we have the full moon here, we get a taste of that kind of energy. And there's a sense of culmination, completion, where you might feel like a vision has come to fruition and there's more clarity of the next horizon for you and more clarity of the lessons that you've integrated and learned. So all full moons are a good day to celebrate and integrate and take a moment to just acknowledge what you've done over the past 6 weeks of the eclipse window, all the way back to the 6 months to the last eclipse season. So, overall, quite auspicious, quite positive energy. And in that, moon is joining up with Saturn on that day of Monday, October 6th. So, it's a good day to be disciplined and to do practices. And I am hosting this free workshop on that day, on the full moon, while moon is with Saturn, to deepen your yoga practices. So, if you want to go deeper into understanding anatomy, philosophy, the spiritual side of yoga, beyond just the asana and the poses, and yeah, it feels amazing when we do yoga, but how do we integrate that into our lives? That's the kind of stuff I'll cover there. I've found in my many years of studying and teaching yoga that there's a lot to learn and it's super deep and it complements Jyotish very well. So many times there's overlap. If you're studying Jyotish, you're also into yoga and vice versa. And they complement each other well, where yoga handles the body part of it and the physical stuff with the breath, the mind, the emotions, how to move the energy. There's many yoga practices to work with astrology, like practices to work with Mercury energy, like I mentioned pranayama earlier, or with Saturn energy, grounding practices. So we'll talk about that. And I found it can be distilled into 10 skills that you can learn in 3 phases. And I'll outline all of that in the workshop. You'll walk away with a workbook and a plan to how to integrate everything you've learned. So it's really cool. I'm excited to share this. So if you want to go into your yoga practices, whether you're a beginner, a student, or a teacher, I will address all levels there. And I love sharing this stuff. So it's very, very important to me. It's been like, it's what got me out of depression many years ago. It's what's helped me navigate all the ups and downs of life. I cannot imagine who I would be without my yoga practice. I would have so much more attention, so much more mental stress. And whenever that stuff does come up, because it continues, life continues, and these things come up, yoga is the thing I go to move the energy and to work with the energy. Astrology is where I go to understand the energy. Yoga is where I go to move the energy and work with it and harness it. So I think they're both essential. And that's what I'll share at that workshop, Monday, October 6th. You can check it out on the link in the show notes or go to quietmind.yoga and you can sign up there. Then the next transit is on Thursday, October 9th. Venus enters Virgo. Now, this is considered debilitation of Venus. And this is considered a challenging place for Venus to be on Thursday, October 9th. And it will stay there until early November. And this is why I'll be offering the relationship workshop later this month. And we have positive things where the relationships, and we have some challenging, interesting things. Now, if you just like look online about Venus and Virgo, you might find the more negative stuff. But it's always, everything has a potential positive, negative, and neutral expression. So if we just focus on Venus and Virgo, On the negative side, it's Venus is love and relationships. Virgo is very like practical in the head, not in the heart. So there can be some challenges this month of October, starting from the 9th, of being analytical about relationships, being nitpicking, critical, over analyzing things, overthinking it. That is the challenging side. And that's what you might find when you first look up things around Venus and Virgo or try to understand and just put it together. It's a dissonant energy. So it's generally going to bring out more challenges, but every challenge brings an opportunity to grow. And a lot of times, like when people have this in their birth chart or any challenging placement, that becomes a major strength for them later on in life. Like for me, I have Mercury debilitated, but here I am, my whole work is with my voice and communication, even though my communication is debilitated. So it's something that can become a strength later in life through practice. Albert Einstein also had Mercury debilitated, but I think he did okay mentally. You know, Mercury is the intellect as well. So Venus in Virgo has a positive side as well. It's not just challenging stuff. And those challenges can lead to growth. So if you notice yourself getting too much in your head about relationships, nitpicking, criticizing, overanalyzing, an opportunity to turn that inward and be aware of that way of communicating. It might feel harsh, judgmental. Your partner might feel criticized. People around you might feel criticized. But that can be used to turn towards yourself and speak to yourself like you would want to speak to a friend and use this energy to assess what's going on inside and be more vulnerable. That's how we can get into the heart. So, as a Virgo rising myself, that's been a big journey for me of getting out of the intellect into the heart, from the head to the heart. And for everybody, again, this is part of the journey of this month of getting from the head to the heart to connect from that place. And Virgo, the symbol of it, as you may know, what is the symbol of Virgo? It's a young woman who is a healer who has Ayurvedic herbs. So she's essentially like an Ayurvedic doctor or healer. And if you go to a doctor or healer, what do you want them to do? You want them to find the issue and get right to it. And you want them to be critical and you want them to be observant and detailed. You wouldn't want a brain surgeon who's not detail oriented and precise and critical, right? You want that Virgo energy, that healer, precise energy when you are dealing with health and wellness, which is what Virgo is very much what it thrives in. But if you bring that same energy of like a surgeon or a doctor to love and relationships of Venus, now it becomes critical nitpicking and all this. But the positive side of it could be that you find the root cause of challenges and obstacles and problems in the relationship, and you can use the intellect of Virgo to find a solution to them. So you may be thinking more clearly about relationships. This is a sobering energy. After we had Venus and Pisces at the beginning of the year, exalted, that's a more intoxicating energy. It's just beautiful and glorious and harmonious and so wonderful. But you know, we have the opposite here towards the end of the year, which brings all of that stuff into reality, into okay, what is the financial situation of the relationship? What are the plans for the future? And how are we organizing life? And how are we dividing up finances, chores, commitments, obligations, all of that practical stuff. So you can bring that Virgo mindset of like the healer, the analyst, the accountant, the judge, the lawyer, the doctor. These are all like good Virgo professions, but you don't want those kind of attitudes in relationships. Like those work in workplace and professions in the 10th house, but not as good in the 7th house or the sign of Venus, which is Libra. But for the planet Libra, excuse me, the planet Venus, there's my Mercury debilitated. For the planet Venus to be in Virgo is we want to bring that analytical problem solving energy into the heart. And from the heart, it's not so cold, it's warm, it's not so detached, it's connected, and it's not so analytical and observant, but it's also like feeling and not just observing from the mind, but observing from the heart. So we bring these together and it can be a very beautiful thing. And a lot of times when we bring together opposite energies, that's very like interesting and it's very captivating. Like there's a fun thing happening now with like AI songs. So like take a 50 Cent song, it's like all gangster rap, and you put it in like a 50s doo-wop style. And it's like that juxtaposition is very interesting, it's very fascinating, and it gets our attention. So we have this juxtaposition of Venus and Virgo this month. So through that, we can create a really interesting alchemy and grow a lot in relationships this month. And we'll be talking about that at the relationship workshop on October 20th, quietmindastrology.com/relationships. And you can sign up for that for free. It's totally free. And I like to make these workshops like super value packed, and you walk away with a lot of things you can actually apply to your life and perspectives and just a new way of thinking about relationships and astrology that you might not have heard before. And it's interactive, it's live. So I like to answer your questions and personalize it to you and you when you join live. So that'll be super fun and bring out the positives of this. But we also have Jupiter going to Cancer. I'll talk about this soon, but that's a really positive energy for relationships and a more long term thing instead of just a month. So moving on, we have Moon exalted in Taurus on Friday, October 10th. And this is a more brief topic here, but Moon passes through Taurus every month. It gets exalted for a little bit every month. But essentially, Friday, October 10th, that's Venus's day. Venus is in Virgo, but the moon is here exalted. So overall, this is a positive day for going on a date, doing something romantic, connecting with your partner. If you're single, it's connecting with your relationship to self. Maybe you go out dating, maybe you connect with friends, do something you love, something that's nourishing, something that you really get to delight in the senses, like eating like your favorite food or putting some candles and music on, do something relaxing and nourishing for you on Friday, October 10th. The 9th and 11th are okay for this as well. Then the next one is a more long term influence, Tuesday, October 14th, when we have Pluto moving direct. So Pluto's been retrograde for a while. It goes retrograde every year for a few months, and then it goes direct for a few more months every year. And Pluto stays in a sign for up to 20 years because it has a unique orbit. But this is a long thing I've talked about a lot on the past podcast. I won't go so far into it now. But Pluto entered Capricorn in 2020. We had COVID, we had major government changes, and all sorts of impact on government around the world. And this is a long energy, long influence that is returned to where it was during the American and French revolutions around 1776. So we have a revolutionary energy happening in the United States, especially, which has an impact on the world because right now the US is the world leader in a lot of ways, but that is evolving. And we see that in the world politics and things like this. But on a personal level, which I like to focus on more on the podcast, what you can do with this, because we can't do anything about politics unless you work in politics, then yes, you can. But for most of us, Pluto going direct in Capricorn helps us now move forward on a deep foundational psychological level. So you may have been going back through issues of the past, psychologically, from the childhood, from the family, your foundation. Issues to do with maybe the foundation of your house or where you live, what kind of work you do. It's been a time to go back to things, revisit things, learn from things of the past over the past few months, and the structures in your life and reevaluate them. There may have been some metaphorical earthquakes to the foundation of your life and the structures of your life. I can attest that I have experienced that. And now we go direct in Capricorn. So we've learned some things, we've reviewed some things, we've looked back, now we look forward. So, what kind of structure do you want to be building in your life over the next several months? This is a long cycle. It's still many more years, 15 more years of working out these lessons of Pluto in Capricorn. And in Uttarashada, it's a lot about what you believe, your values, what you're willing to fight for, and what matters to you. You might be very opinionated, you might be very neutral. But for you, it's finding your path and your way of doing things. And a lot of things in the world and politics, especially in the US, are very divisive right now, and a lot of opinions in politics. So we had Pluto, and since we've had Pluto in Sagittarius before this, it's when it really picked up. And again, this is a historical transit every roughly 250 years. This happens. So you can go back to the history books and see this, but it's happening now. And finding your place within all of that noise and all of that strong energy, especially in the US, but it is global. And then on a personal level, it's coming to explore, what do you value? What do you want to focus on? What are your beliefs? Like, do you have a religion? Do you have a spirituality? Do you have a political affiliation? And what causes do you care about? As Rahu's in Aquarius right now as well, for another year or so. It's like, what communities do you want to be part of? What causes do you care about? We're moving more and more into more and more tiny niches of society as the world moves online. And before, it was like everyone had a TV and you all watched the same channel. And then there was 3 channels. And then there was 5 channels. And then there was eventually cable TV and 1,000 channels. And then eventually the internet. And then, now it's just the way that media and sort of culture keeps moving is more and more niches within niches. And finding your niche has never been easier, but also in some ways never been more overwhelming. It was simpler times way back in the day when everyone just watched TV and everyone knew who the Beatles were and these kind of things. Now it's like you find more and more niche topics. And as AI is part of this too, it's like niche content being created for you and things like this, like the AI songs I mentioned. I've heard some great AI songs that only a handful of people will ever hear because it's so niche, and it's just not going to end up on the radio like it used to be, and everybody hears it. So with all of this, it's a good time to be exploring, like, what topics are you interested in? What kind of communities do you want to connect with in person, online? What kind of hobbies do you want to explore? It's also never been easier to dive into a hobby or interest. That's really cool. Like right now, I'm just thinking, when I was learning guitar, like, you have to buy these guitar tapes. They're very expensive, and it's just an hour, and that's all you got. Like, you want to learn this guitar lesson, that's it. There's a book maybe, and then eventually there's websites. But now there's just like thousands of YouTube videos, and that's great, but that's its own problem. It's like now it's overwhelming, too much information, and you need a guide and a teacher. So I think that's something I talk about a lot. Like, if you want to go down any path, it is helpful to find a guide or teacher or community that you can just follow that path and kind of turn down all the noise, because it can be overwhelming with all the noise and all the content out there now. And it's like too much, and we can never possibly consume a fraction of it in our lifetime. And we're not even designed to do that much, and our brains are not really designed to take on so much information. So, if you do go down a path, find somebody who has results you want, learn from them, do everything they say, and then maybe you stay with them, maybe you move on. But I found that to be very helpful in my path, is find mentors and work with them, and then, follow that path as far as you can. And then the next notable transit is Sun moves into Libra on Friday, October 17th. This is the monthly Sun transit. So this is always about a month, Sun in a sign. And this is the Sun now considered debilitated. So the Sun spends the first half of the month in Virgo. Again, good for learning, understanding things, healing. Now, Sun in Libra has some challenges, and Venus is debilitated too. Extra challenges on relationships. Again, this is why I'm doing the free workshop on October 20th. Help you work with this energy because it can be challenging. Sun wants to be the center of attention, the center of the solar system, the authority, the leader, the power, the boss. Libra wants to find what's fair and just and balanced and harmonious and be compromising. So these are dissonant energies, just like Venus and Virgo are dissonant energies. So what do you do with that? Well, the positive side, there's always a positive side. Sun in Libra, leadership through collaboration and compromise. This is finding authority, power, creativity by being fair, by connecting with other people's needs, by considering other people. So this is a necessary time of learning how to compromise, how to be more collaborative, how to focus more on service than selfishness. When Sun is in Aries, 6 months from now, that's the time to be more selfish and in your own energy and do what you need. But while it's in Libra, it's the time to be collaborative, more considerate, more compromising. Now, this could become a fault where you become codependent to giving, not taking care of your needs. And if you find that happening, you've gone too far into this, which with these more dissonant energies, it's easier to get out of alignment. It's more challenging. It's like a challenging yoga pose. It's easier to fall out of alignment. It's harder to hold a hard, complicated yoga pose that requires a lot of strength and flexibility and balance. Difficult transits are like that. Sun in Aries is more harmonious. It's easier to just ride the wave. Sun in Libra is a bit more rocky. So I'm going to be sharing stuff at the free workshop to work with that. But that's the main thing that you can take away through the second half of October, through the first half of November. Focus on service, finding harmony, compromising. Notice where your ego gets triggered. You want to defend yourself. You want to be right. You want to be in control. You want to be the one, the leader, the one who says everything has to be this way. That is disharmonious to Libra. That is not collaborative. That's controlling. That's not compromising. So it's more likely to create conflict. So if you want to learn some hard lessons this month, you want to go into some conflict, then be more in the sun energy or just do it my way or the highway at its extreme. And Mars is there too, so it amplifies this. And Mercury, it just amplifies. Mercury, whatever Mercury's with, it just amplifies. So it adds fuel to all that fire. So be mindful of your words this month, how you communicate, how you work with relationships, but thinking what's fair and balanced. The symbol of Libra is a scale, like we talk about the scales of justice. So if you find the balance is going too far either way, try to restore balance. And in Ayurveda, we say like increases like, opposites bring balance. So if you notice things are going too far in one direction, move towards more balance and harmony. And as a general predisposition, just being of service with this energy, of being selfless. And it tends to be these things just circulate, it comes back, right? If you are selfish and controlling, your partner, your relationships, not just romantic, but your relationships tend to mirror that back. And it creates a perpetual conflict machine. And if you are selfless, giving, generous, compromising, not to a fault, but in a healthy way, still taking care of your needs, still honoring yourself, that tends to be reciprocated. And there's a really nice give and give and give and amplification of generosity and abundance through that. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, we talk about you give for the sake of giving, not for the fruits. That's the real reason we're here, is to give, to share our gifts, not to try to accumulate a bunch of objects or money or status or accolades or something like that, but to give our gifts. And then those things might come, they might not, but we do it for the sake of giving. That's the spiritual underlying principle of this energy. And then the big one, the most significant transit of the second half of the year is Jupiter into Cancer on October 18th. And it's an interesting one because Jupiter is flown through Gemini this year. It doesn't usually do that, but with the nature of the orbits, basically sometimes they're slower or faster, the short version. But it's going to be in Cancer here for just a little bit, about 6 weeks, I think. It'll be till early November, but it's just a little bit is the main thing. And this is a time where now very positive energy coming into relationships, what you love, what nourishes you. It's this energy for abundance, growth, prosperity. It's everything we love and want in life. It's lots of good things. Positive for children, for finances, for health, for the home. But it's just there for a little bit. Then it's going to go retrograde and it's go back to Gemini, where it's a more complicated dynamic. It's more dissonant energy. What we've had going on through this year, Jupiter and Gemini throughout the year, bringing lots of expansion of technology, ideas, communication, technology things, impossible expansion of friend circles and communication, but it can be overwhelming and too much and too many ideas, overstimulation. of Jupiter and Gemini throughout most of this year. But now it goes to Cancer. So this brings expansion and abundance into the home, into the relationships, what nourishes you. It's a very beautiful energy. And especially starting on October 18th, there's a sense of renewal, a hopefulness, optimism. If there's a teacher you've been wanting to connect with, or you're looking for a teacher or a mentor, it's likely they will come into your life. You're looking for a therapist, a guide, a spiritual advisor. You're likely to encounter very beneficial people in your life. Now, there could be a downside. There's always a potential negative, even the most positive transits. There could be like overindulgence on nourishing, comforting foods. There could be some sort of naivety about relationships with teachers or guides or paths that you follow. But that's low percentage. It's really overall very positive energy. So it's much welcome, very welcome energy with the more challenging stuff happening this month. But again, to work with all of this, free workshop, October 20th, you can sign up at quietmindastrology.com right now, and we'll be there to talk about relationship astrology. So, what do you look for in synastry and compatibility? And how do you know if somebody is a good partner or what their strengths are or their weaknesses? As you may know, in India, this is almost always used that you match the charts before you get married and you see if it's a good match and you look for certain strengths and weaknesses there. So I'll talk about what those things are, how you can start to look for them yourself, what to look for in your own chart. But also, this is welcome if you're single, if you're in a relationship, if you're new, you're experienced with astrology, all levels, everybody's welcome to this. It's not just for couples. But we will talk a lot about romantic relationships here and what to look for in a spouse, what you bring out in a spouse, where your growth is in the relationships. Lots of good stuff here. And it's one of the most common questions I talk about in readings or with clients is relationships. It always comes up. So it's one of the most important parts of life. And many people say it's the most important decision you make is who you marry or who you commit to. So it has a huge impact on everything else. And we'll talk about it there on October 20th, right after Jupiter's in Cancer. And it's going to be super fun. So then after that, on Tuesday, October 21st, we have the new moon in Chitra in Virgo. So, as always, the new moon happens every month. It's time for new beginnings, planting seeds of intention. We're fully out of that eclipse window. We're on the next 6 month stage of life. And new moon in Virgo is an opportunity for new healing paths, new learning paths. If there is something you want to organize in your life, things you want to get together and just be more on top of things, more systemized, put together some spreadsheets, some financial tracking, work with an accountant, handle taxes, anything like this that has to do with organizing, synthesizing, analyzing information is very, very fruitful here on the new moon in Virgo. It brings a sense of renewal to relationships as well, as Venus is there with the moon. So there may be a new level, a new chapter going deeper into relationships here, which again, we'll talk about at the free workshop. But for everybody, this is an opportunity to set new intentions in what you want to have in your love life, but also in your health and your general organization of your life. Are you liking your routines? Do you want to be going to bed earlier or later? Do you want to be exercising this much or that much? Analyzing your health routines, your lifestyle, very good to do here, which also is tied in with what we'll cover at the Deepen Your Practice workshop too. So if you have a yoga practice or you don't, this is a good time to assess your health routines. For me, the three major things are like self myofascial release, like working with a therapy ball. Like I have one right here, something you can just like roll on the floor, like a foam roller or a ball. These are amazing for releasing knots and tensions. And then yoga for increasing flexibility, balance, overall mind body connection, especially when you do like vinyasa, but any style, like it's a lot for the mind too. Like we think of it as a body asana practice, but especially with the pranayama meditation. And then, so yoga covers a lot. So we got the myofascial release, yoga, and then strength training. And with that, I would say also some sort of cardio. So kind of a fourth thing, but strength training and cardio, because oftentimes strength training will increase your heart rate a lot. It's kind of like sprinting when you lift heavy weights. but that builds muscle and bone density, which is especially important as we age. And we get a nice balance of releasing tension, building flexibility, building strength between those three. And if you need extra heart rate work, cardio is great as well. But to me, those are essential to health. And then looking at like your nutrition, diet, sleep, sunlight, water, essential things, and then adding supplements after that. But usually those things could use some attention before adding supplements and external things. And then diet as well, just a whole foods, natural diet, as close to nature as you can. Minimal processed foods within reason. You don't need to deprive yourself of life. But those things I always come back to with health as the Virgo rising, speaking about the Virgo new moon. So that's my little spiel. If you want to renew some health habits, that's a good time to do that. And again, we will talk about this kind of stuff at the Deepen Your Practice workshop if you want to go deeper on that. And if you want some free yoga classes, I've got a bunch on YouTube and Quietmind Yoga podcast. Over 200 free yoga classes you can check out there if you want to do some practices with me. And then the next transit is on Friday, October 24th. Mercury moves into Scorpio. So just two more transits to talk about this month. Of course, Mercury tends to move twice a month. So it was in Libra at the beginning, ends in Scorpio. So Mercury moving on to communicating deeper, going into deeper research, deeper self awareness, deeper personal growth. It's a great time for learning things like astrology, learning about yourself, therapy, psychology, personal growth work. And there can be some sudden, deep stuff coming up, like needs to be talked about, challenges, emotional challenges, some harsh communication potentially you want to be aware of. But overall, this is very good if you harness it for deep research, analyzing, understanding yourself, personal growth kind of stuff. And then the final one is Mars moves to Scorpio as well. This brings action into this. So, not just researching, but now you're taking action for personal growth. So, like physical embodiment practices like yoga, vinyasa, running, weight training. You're doing physical practices that lead to personal growth. And maybe you're like working out and listening to podcasts like this or audiobooks. Or maybe you're taking action that's going to lead to deep personal growth in the long run. Or signing up for a course or a training, or going on some sort of excursion or deep excavation into some part of your life, or traveling or trip or something like that, that's going to lead you to deeper insights. So, as an astrologer and yogi, I love this kind of energy. Scorpio energy is all about this transformation and growth stuff. So, if there's something stuck in your life, it'll likely get unstuck around the end of October into November. If there's some activation energy needed in your life to move something, to break through a block, to overcome a resistance, it will shake loose at the end of October into November. So overall, it's quite positive. If you have a goal you want to set, action you want to take, move towards it. Have a bias towards action, towards movement. Again, especially like vinyasa yoga, power yoga, even weight training, running, physical, transformative energy, like where you break a sweat, your heart rate goes up. You're a different state after you do it. If you don't, that energy can be very intense and get stuck in the body. So please move the energy, do something to move it so it doesn't get stuck. Because this is the energy to break through barriers. Like most of the fuel in a rocket is used on getting it off the ground in the beginning of the trip. So that's the kind of activation energy Mars is bringing to Scorpio to move something, to transform something. So you want to have a big rocket to move, a big direction to go, something you're wanting to lift off, launching a product, starting a new path in life, taking a new training, working with a new coach, something like this. Move into action. So that's our review of October 2025, 12 notable events, including 2 free workshops, the full moon, the new moon, and Jupiter moving into Cancer, which is just here for a few weeks, but then it sets the stage for all of 2026, all the way into 2027. It's a big transit. So it requires more discussion and more resources. We'll talk about it at the free workshop. And if you want to deepen your yoga practice, that also is an amazing resource to work with the energy this month. I always time my offerings with the transits, and I always like to give them as free workshops so we can interact. And that's one of my favorite things is doing the live workshops and personalizing it to you and giving you a space where we can really work on something and go deeper. So there will be workbooks, there will be discussion, there will be exercises, and it'll be interactive. So check it out. Quietmind.yoga for the Deepen Your Practice workshop, quietmindastrology.com for the Relationship Astrology workshop. And if you enjoyed this podcast, let me know in the comments on Spotify and YouTube. Thanks for listening and hope you have a beautiful October. And look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast.